Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight, dieting, and constantly feeling like you're starting over with nutrition and fitness? Do you wish you had more energy? Do you want to lose weight and finally keep it off for good? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse. I too have been there, and at the age of 44, I decided I was done with fad diets and chasing a lower number on the scale. I was so tired of constantly starting over and wondering why I couldn't get lasting results. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best formula for women who want to build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, the scale, and your body, let's build your formula for feeling your best. If you're new here, make sure to check the episode details for the link to my newbie starter guide. You'll receive an email straight to your inbox with everything you need to start building your Feel Your Best formula. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. I'm Lil. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know that we're really gearing up for the holiday season here. And today I'm going to update you on the fat loss phase that I just finished right before Thanksgiving. And honestly, there's so much I want to say. And this is actually going to be in two parts because a fat loss phase is not just about the fat loss phase, it's about what you do after. So today is kind of a part one where I'm going to summarize the fat loss phase, the good, the bad, the ugly, how I felt about it, the results that I got, the challenges I faced, and what I did to overcome them, and why I was so happy to be done with it when it was finally time to end this fat loss phase. So I'm going to share here. I'm going to assume that you've been listening to the podcast for a while. If this is the first episode that you're listening to, please go back and listen to a whole bunch of episodes and then come back to this one, because you kind of have to have some context here where I'm talking about this fat loss phase. If you're brand new to the concepts that I'm talking about here, it's going to be wildly different than the dieting and weight loss things that you've done in the past. And I can't possibly summarize all of that in this episode. So do yourself a favor, go back, look for some titles that interest you in previous episodes, and then come back to this one because this is going to be a good one, especially for those of you who have been tuning in regularly. You're tuned in to the themes that we talk about here, the mindset shift that goes on, and why a fat loss phase should be temporary and we should not be living life on a diet. So these episodes that I've been doing, I've just done, I think, 3 little updates. And so this is going to be the final one because I am no longer in a fat loss phase. I'm back in maintenance. To review, I started this fat loss phase right after Labor Day weekend. So that Tuesday, we got back from Labor Day, being away at the lake, eating, just having a good old time. I think we made some s'mores on the campfire and just had a really great time. And we came back that Tuesday and started fat loss phase. Prior to this, the past 2 years, I've spent the vast majority of my time in maintenance working to build muscle. I did have a couple, issues pop up, most specifically breaking my ankle a year ago, which really, was challenging. But other than that, I've been working on building muscle, living in maintenance, and I have not gone on a diet. And it really took a lot for me to get to the point where I felt like I was ready for this. I was really enjoying maintenance. I got to a point where I wasn't even tracking my food and everything was staying stable, and I just felt so confident and happy with my routine. But there is this piece of me that does really want to change my body composition, and shedding the fat is part of that. It's not something that I absolutely had to do. I did it because I truly wanted to do it. I didn't feel pressured by anyone to do it. I just felt like I needed to do it for myself, and part of me needed to do it for you so that I can, when I'm coaching you, I can share with you what to expect and pull from my own experiences, but also understanding that everyone has a unique experience. I wouldn't try to say that your experience should be exactly like mine. And that is part of what's wrong with the diet industry, is they give you cookie cutter diets and they expect everybody to get the same results. And that is just absurd, because we all have different bodies. We all have different day-to-day lives. We all have different obligations. We have different foods that we like. We come from different cultures. And what I always say here is it needs to be your plan. And that is how you make a fat loss phase effective. So I decided that I wanted to share with you what I feel are my most important takeaways from this process. I want to make it clear that before I started this, I 1000% knew it would work. I knew that if I followed the plan, I knew that I would see the changes that I wanted to see. And I entered this fat loss phase with my eyes wide open. I think in the past, a lot of times when I started a diet, it would be like, oh, I really hope this works. I don't really know why I'm doing certain aspects. Like, why am I following these rules? Why am I measuring my food in these containers? And there's a lot of vagueness in diets because they don't really want you to know. They don't want you to understand macros, because then you would not be as confused and you would be more empowered and you wouldn't buy their diet. So I entered this fat loss phase understanding exactly what I was doing and the exact results that I was working towards. But of course, everything is a journey and you can't necessarily anticipate every step of the way. So I knew I had to be prepared that, it wasn't going to be a straight line and I need to have flexibility. But I really went into this excited, confident, and really looking forward to the experience, which is certainly not how I've entered other diet plans in the past. And let me be clear, this is a diet. It is a restrictive diet. When you go into a fat loss phase, you are creating restriction in your calories and you have to change your food choices accordingly. And this is coming off of living in maintenance, where I have plenty of room for all those foods that I really enjoy. And what you really need to do when you're in maintenance, if you're anticipating entering a fat loss phase, you got to ask yourself, where are those extra 300, 400, 500 calories a day going to come from when I enter a fat loss phase? And I had thought about it in anticipation of this fat loss phase and went into it understanding I'm going to have to say goodbye to my cheeses that I love a little bit. I'm going to have to cut back on the desserts, the breads, the foods that are adding more calories and are not helping me hit my protein and my fiber goals. That's how it works. And I went into it already having ideas on where I was going to pull those calories from so that I could be in the calorie deficit. So a few things that I thought about as far as expectations and outcomes. Number one, I already knew I was not going to lose a massive amount of weight on the scale because I was targeting fat loss. And like I said, previous episodes, we've talked about this, the difference between weight loss and fat loss. I was going to do what I needed to do to maintain my muscle in terms of protein consumption and sticking to my 4 strength training workouts per week. And remember, when you slash calories, you do cardio workouts, and you just focus on burning calories, you're gonna lose muscle. So I knew that doing this the right way meant doing it for about an 8 to 12 week period, but I knew it was gonna be closer to 8 weeks because I had Thanksgiving, the holidays coming up, and sorry, you could not pay me to be on a diet during this time. So I knew I was gonna end prior to the Thanksgiving time period. I anticipated I would probably lose somewhere around 5, maybe 10 pounds, but I knew that would be pushing it. And I've been on diets. On one diet I lost 13 pounds in 21 days, which now I look back and I go, oh my word, I did so much damage to my muscles doing that program, because I clearly probably lost 5 or 6 pounds of muscle if I was losing 13 pounds in 3 weeks. So I'm taking my prior experience with my knowledge of macros as a nutrition coach, as someone who looks at the information, the research now, and I understand that the scale is not going to go down as drastically, but I'm going to be losing fat. And that is exactly what I want to do. So I knew it would be slower movement on the scale each week, probably about a pound, half a pound to a pound per week. And I mentally prepared myself for that. Also, I was prepared to keep an eye out on any obsessive or disordered behaviors. I set myself up for success by not doing a drastic calorie restriction, because I knew the hungrier I was, the more likely I would be to go back to those disordered behaviors. So for me, this looks like binging. When I used to restrict severely, I would then end up binging on sweets, and it would be this binge restrict cycle, which is just a hot mess physically and mentally. And I knew if I saw those behaviors start rearing their ugly head, I was prepared to pull the plug, because my physical and mental health was not worth going back to that space. I know what it's like now to have a healthy relationship with food, and I don't want to go backwards. I've really enjoyed living in maintenance and the mental health benefits that have resulted from it, the way I feel about my body, my confidence, my love, my appreciation for my body. I don't obsess about how I look anymore. Instead, I think about how I feel, how strong I am, and those are the goals I work towards. And yes, you get an aesthetic benefit when you start working towards getting stronger and leaner, but it wasn't the whole reason that I am doing things. It's just more of a side effect. So I was a little nervous because I was just worried that some behaviors could pop up, and I really wanted to be successful. I wanted to feel confident when I ended this fat loss phase and feel like I saw some results physically and mentally. And this is an important piece of the process for me, because my goal long-term is body recomposition, building more muscle, losing the body fat. I don't want to be super, super lean, but I do want to be leaner than I am right now. And I understand it's going to take me a long time to get there. It might be another year. It might be another 2 years. It's an ongoing process. But the fact that I feel so good about myself right now shows me that the process and everything I'm doing every day is just so healthy for me. And I didn't want to jeopardize that by doing anything extreme with the fat loss phase. Number 3, I knew I would absolutely not be at my end goal after this first fat loss phase. I have not built enough muscle. I need a lot more muscle building, a minimum of another 6 months. I might even go 12 months before I attempt another fat loss phase. So I prepared myself ahead of time. I knew I wasn't going to look like a bikini model in the end. Not that I'm ever going to look like that, but I had a realistic expectation of what I could expect, what I was going to look like at the end of this. I knew I wanted to stop before Thanksgiving, and that's for a couple reasons. As I said, I didn't want to be on a diet during the holidays. I want to be in maintenance. I want to be enjoying myself. And also, a fat loss phase should be temporary. I've talked about this before, but my own history of over dieting, I did get myself into a pickle with dieting to a point that even when I did slash my calories down to 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day, I did not get results because my body was starved and I had some metabolic adaptation going on along with binge and restrict behaviors. So I do not want to get to a point where my metabolism slows down. I want to be doing the opposite, which is building muscle, staying active so that I do not end up with a slower metabolism. So I knew I was going to end before Thanksgiving, and it was kind of nice that it worked out that way naturally, where I wouldn't even be tempted to keep going with the diet, which was something I was also worried about because I knew I was going to see results. And sometimes seeing results makes you think, oh, I should keep going. I should keep going. I should keep going. And I didn't want to. I wanted to stop and get back to building muscle because, like I said, this is just a temporary phase for myself. In the muscle building side of things is so important because that's how you're going to see those results that you want. When you shed the fat and have that nice lean toned look, there has to be the muscle underneath it. And I personally don't feel that I've built enough muscle where I'm going to necessarily feel I'm as toned as I want to look, even if I had lost, another 10 pounds or so of fat. So overall, I just felt like it was a really nice time to do a fat loss phase as far as what my daily life looks like this time of year, events. I didn't have any travel. I didn't face any major obstacles in terms of events. Of course, there were different things that popped up socially, but it was pretty easy to maneuver. It really was not a big deal doing this from September through November. I think it's really important to look at your schedule and plan and choose a fat loss phase timing during a time when you're going to be able to stick with it. This is something that I really plan for with my clients and making sure that it is the right time because you want to do everything that you can to set yourself up for success in your environment has a huge impact on your ability to stick with the plan. I knew I wanted to get in, get results, get out, and be done with that. I knew that from the beginning. Okay, so now that we've kind of gone over what was going on in my head, I want to share the outcomes, the good, the bad, the ugly of this whole process. And I don't want to pretend that dieting is all rainbows and sunshine because it's not. And that is exactly why you're listening to this right now, probably because even if you've been successful with diets, it hasn't stuck and it hasn't been something you want to go back to. We should not be living life on a diet. Maintenance is where it's at. So learning to live at maintenance is the most important thing you can do for yourself before entering a fat loss phase. Okay, so how did things go? Let's start with the good, the exciting. Well, first of all, I lost about 6 to 7 pounds of body fat. And it just depends how you look at it. Do you look at my weekly average or do you look at my highest point to my lowest point? So it was very obvious to me that I had lost body fat, especially in my arms and in my legs. I feel like I look more like I lost about 10 pounds based on my previous weight loss experiences. And I loved how I felt knowing I preserved my muscle and, I look more toned, especially in my legs. I feel like I have so much more definition in my quads and my glutes and my hamstrings and even my calves. My stomach is flatter. I still have a little bit of that extra fluff around my middle, but I'm okay with that. It's nothing that would stop me from wearing a bikini or a bathing suit or anything like that. And my husband really noticed a difference in my butt, especially. He really noticed that. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, but we did do this together. So we did our fat loss phase together. We started it the same day and ended it around the same time. I ended a little bit sooner than him. But he got to eat more calories than me, of course, because his deficit numbers were different than mine because he is larger than me. But he lost a ton of fat in his belly area. And I think he even added some muscle during this time, which is pretty rare, but he has crazy good genetics. He's Irish and Polish in his ancestry. And he just builds muscle. So I swear he thinks about building muscle and his muscles start popping up. So he looks amazing. He honestly would have a much more substantial before and after photo than I do. So that was another big check mark in the good part of this, the fact that it was more enjoyable because we did it together. We made room for our favorite foods. We went out to eat and we were both on board with, okay, the choices that we're making while we're going out to eat. He's not like trying to get me to go to some really heavy calorie laden meal when I'm trying to stick to a calorie deficit. We were both on the same page with that, and that was really fun. Like I said, we made room for our favorite foods. We usually had Chipotle. That's something that we typically do even just on a regular basis, is that we typically get Chipotle on a Friday night, and then we go to the bakery that's right next to Chipotle and we get ourselves a mini treat. And we kept that up. We didn't go to the bakery, and we ordered a slightly different, burrito bowl than we normally do. Like, I cut out the beans from mine, he cut out the rice from his, we doubled the protein. We skipped the sour cream and cheese or asked for very, very light, and then added some at home, where we could control it. So you definitely, Friday nights for us, I'm kind of done. I don't know about you, but by Fridays, I am so tired of cooking. I'm so tired of cleaning. I just want to go and get takeout. I don't even want to go out to eat because I don't feel like getting dressed up or putting too much effort in my appearance. But that is something that really, really worked for us. We got sushi a few times. We ordered salads from a local tavern, I guess you would call it. Yeah, it's a tavern. They have really good salads. And the pizza place that we order from, we would do some pizza and salad. So we were just mindful, but we still ate out at least once a week. And it was just really fun to do it together and know that we were both on the same page when we were making those decisions. Overall, prioritizing my protein goal and making sure to get my fiber in, that made this very manageable in terms of hunger and being, I only eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I normally have dessert. Sometimes I did not have room for the dessert, which was kind of a bummer, but sometimes I would have a protein snack in the afternoon to tide me over for dinner because that's when I tend to get the most hungry. I did lose quite a bit of body fat. Like, if you were to look at what 6-ish pounds of body fat, if you were to pile it all up, like, remember when Oprah took that big wagon of fat and showed like 100 pounds of fat or whatever that she had lost? Even 6 pounds is a substantial amount of volume. So my jeans are a little bit looser. But interestingly, I found that some of my smaller size skinny jeans that haven't fit me for a while, but I've been hanging on to, those I could get them on and I could button them, but the quads are way too tight now. I actually am just going to donate them. I'm going to go through and donate because the reason I feel my legs are bigger is because of the muscle. And those style of skinny jeans just probably aren't really going to fit me that well. I do have a curvy body shape, And now having larger legs, I'm going to have to be very picky about what brand of skinny jeans actually fit me from now on. So the upper legs are tight because my muscles have grown, and I would honestly rather have my muscle and feel the way I do in a size 8 or 10 than try to squeeze myself back into a size 4 or 6. I really like the way I look in a tank top. I noticed overall toning in my shoulders, my arms. I can just see a difference, and that was really fun to see. Okay, so that's a lot of the good things and that I just want to highlight. There's other good things, but those are the things I wanted to just say, had the most impact. And now let's kind of look at the not so glamorous fun side of this process, because there were definitely things I did not enjoy, and it really made me look forward to the fat loss phase being over. So first of all, you have to be really diligent with your food tracking. And I had been really enjoying eating intuitively for a while there in maintenance, and it was kind of a pain to start tracking again, but I knew I needed to do it. So I put on my big girl pants and I did it. And there were for sure days when I didn't have room for my ice cream or a little treat. And I got kind of annoyed at myself when I didn't plan ahead, or just the options I had did not work out and I used too many calories to the point where, I didn't have room to fit in those extra treats that I like. It really requires you to be on the ball. That's why I'm saying you got to be strategic about when you're going to do a fat loss phase. And honestly, it can just get exhausting having to really be so diligent. Also, we need to talk about hunger. I was pleasantly surprised that I was not overly hungry most days. I was definitely a little hungry when I went to bed, a little hungry when I woke up. I had to make sure I had a pre-workout snack because I just definitely did not have enough energy on board to do a workout in the morning without eating. And sometimes I can get away with doing a workout without eating before, just depending what time I do it. But during this time, I absolutely had to have some energy before I did my workout. This is because your glycogen stores get depleted when you're in a fat loss phase. Your body is not consuming as many carbs, and you're not storing as many carbs in your muscles for energy. I did get hungry before meals, like I said, especially dinner. And I learned to have a yogurt or a protein shake around 3 or 4 p.m. to tide me over for dinner. And I don't really experience that a whole lot when I'm in maintenance. I find my lunch really carries me through really well as long as I'm eating dinner by like 5:30, 6 p.m. Overall, it was definitely more enjoyable than diets where I used to slash calories and only eat about 1,200 to 1,500 calories. And I aimed for 1,700 to 1,800 calories per day during this fat loss phase. And I found it much easier to stick to. And that's important. If you can adhere to a plan where you cut your calories even further, then that's great for you. But I knew myself before entering this, and I did not want to do that. I knew that I would be at risk for that whole restrict binge cycle. And so I only cut my calories by a 15% deficit from maintenance. However, even though it was easy in the beginning, as time marched on and I got towards the 6-7 week mark, I really started to crave being back in maintenance. And a big part of that is because of my workouts. In the beginning, I was still doing my workouts. I was still getting stronger. And oddly, I still increased my strength throughout certain body parts. Like I continued to go up on my weights for my Romanian deadlift the entire time. But I started to feel really weak, especially in my upper body, which I've really worked hard to get stronger. And it was just kind of a downer to pick up the weights, just not feel as strong, not feel like I had as much energy during my workouts, not really be looking forward to my workouts because I kind of started anticipating that I just wasn't going to feel my strongest or my best. So it really was around the 6 or 7 week mark that I just noticed I wasn't feeling it in my workouts. I felt like I was kind of going through the motions rather than putting the effort in that I normally do. And it just was not as fun to do my workouts like it normally is. And it honestly, as we got closer and closer to Thanksgiving, I really just started feeling kind of over it. I found myself sneaking candy and little bites of food and not tracking everything. And this is all just a sign that when these things start creeping in, that it's probably not the best thing for you to be doing. I was just feeling hungry a lot. I was just over it mentally. Another issue I had is that unfortunately I get my menstrual cycle every 3 weeks. So I had my period 5 times during this whole fat loss phase. I started on day 1 with it and I ended with it. And I was just, my cravings and hormonal bloat were tolerable in the beginning. Again, as time goes on and your body gets more depleted, you get a little cranky. You don't necessarily have that buffer that you did when you started. So by the end, I was just so done with it. And I really noticed another thing that creeped in was my attitude about the scale, because I've been really apathetic about it for months now, where I just see it for what it is and I don't really care. Well, let me tell you how annoyed I was during that final part of the fat loss phase where the scale went up a couple pounds just because of hormonal bloat. And I just started getting down on myself and having all these negative thoughts, even though intellectually I knew this is just because of my cycle. But I could keep telling myself that, and it didn't matter. I just didn't feel good about it. So by the end, I was just annoyed because of how I felt. I just wanted to be done. I just wanted to see what that real number without the bloating water weight from my cycle was. I wanted to see what I had accomplished. And to say I was done by the Monday of Thanksgiving week would be an understatement. I was so ready to go back into maintenance. And I just woke up that day and I was like, I'm done. We're getting back into maintenance. It's time to feel good again. It felt so good to adjust my calories back up to maintenance. I went into my app and I just was so excited to, bump those calories back up. And I'm going to do a whole separate episode on maintenance after a fat loss phase, because I honestly think this is the time period where you probably need the most help in understanding. I know one of your biggest frustrations is that anytime you have hit a weight loss goal, you've not been able to maintain it, or else again, you probably wouldn't be listening to this. So maintenance is so important. It's frustrating to do all that hard work and then feel like it gets erased simply because you don't know what to do and how to maintain it. The biggest problem is, I think most of us think, this is what I used to think, is I have to keep eating my dieting calories, my calorie deficit calories after I reach my goal. And that is not the case. I am actually eating the same exact maintenance calories that I was eating before my fat loss phase. And in next week's episode, I will go into details as to why that is the correct way to do things, at least for my particular situation. And overall, I'm so glad I did this fat loss phase. I was absolutely ready to do it. It made me understand so deeply why all those other diets I've tried in the past have never worked, because all these underlying habits, the mindset, the understanding, the knowledge was not there. And all I did was starve myself on those diets. I'm telling you, when you do it the right way, it's so empowering. I'm not looking forward to doing it anytime again soon. Like I said, it's probably going to be a minimum of 6 months to a year before I even do another fat loss phase. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to make progress and that I'm not going to see changes in my body. I absolutely will. And that's also why I want to go back to maintenance, because I totally saw changes to my body in maintenance when I've been in maintenance so long. So that's it. My fat loss phase is over. I'm excited for next week's episode where I'm going to go over maintenance. I'm going to share some tidbits with you that you're probably going to be really surprised by. And I really hope that it helps you think about things differently. Like I said, prepares you for the choices that you're going to be making, in 2024. I hope that it helps you make decisions that are going to give you an outcome that you feel really good about. So make sure to tune in next week for the next part of this conversation. Before you go, if you could head on over and tap to give me a little 5-star review on whatever listening app you're listening to, I'd really appreciate it. And now I'm going to go eat some ice cream. It's nighttime. I have to eat dinner, but I'm definitely having ice cream after dinner tonight. And that's it. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate those of you that come in here and listen every Monday and Friday. All right. See you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check the episode details for my new listener starter guide, and any additional resources mentioned in the episode can also be found in the show notes on my website. You can always find me on Instagram at Macros with Lil, and for more healthy lifestyle tips, recipes, and information on my one-to-one and group coaching services, make sure to check out my website. All the links can be found below. If you know someone else who is ready to start building their formula for feeling their best, please share the love and send them a link to the podcast. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and I'll see you back here next week for a brand new one.